In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where stars burned like ancient lanterns and galaxies swirled in silent majesty, there existed a realm unlike any other. It was known as Arinder, a planet cloaked in shimmering veils of violet mist that danced across its skies like living auroras. Beneath this ethereal canopy sprawled verdant forests with trees whose crystalline leaves refracted light into cascading rainbows. Rivers of liquid sapphire carved through the land, their waters humming faintly with an otherworldly resonance. The air itself seemed alive, carrying whispers of forgotten songs and stories etched into the very fabric of existence. At the heart of Arinder's beauty lay its people, the Velithra, beings who defied conventional understanding of life. Their forms were fluid yet radiant, shifting between luminous tendrils of energy and semi-solid shapes adorned with intricate patterns resembling constellations. They communicated not just through words but through resonant pulses of emotion, each interaction weaving threads of shared experience into the collective consciousness of their kind. Among them stood their sovereign, the alien queen, Ilara. Ilara was no ordinary ruler. She embodied the soul of her world. Her presence commanded reverence without coercion, for her essence radiated compassion and wisdom beyond measure. She moved like a symphony of starlight, her form constantly shifting between translucent hues of gold, silver, and amethyst. Her eyes held galaxies within them, swirling with infinite depth, while her voice carried the weight of ages past and futures yet unwritten. To gaze upon her was to feel both infinitesimally small and profoundly connected to something greater than oneself. The bond between Ilara and her people transcended mere loyalty or duty. It was symbiotic, almost sacred. Through her, they found unity, purpose, and harmony with their environment. In return, their love and devotion fueled her strength, allowing her to maintain the delicate balance that sustained Arinder's fragile ecosystem. For centuries, under her guidance, the Velithra flourished, creating art, science, and philosophy so advanced it bordered on magic. Yet, despite their achievements, they remained humble custodians of their home, ever mindful of the interconnectedness of all things. But peace is often fleeting when faced with forces beyond comprehension. On what should have been another tranquil day beneath Arinder's celestial skies, darkness crept unbidden into the Queen's sanctuary. A sudden tremor rippled through the atmosphere, disrupting the natural rhythms of the planet. The crystalline trees dimmed, their vibrant colors fading to muted tones, as if mourning an impending tragedy. Ilara felt it first, a cold void gnawing at the edges of her awareness, threatening to unravel the intricate web of life she had nurtured for so long. From the depths of space emerged a fleet of jagged vessels, their surfaces blackened by unknown energies that seemed to consume the light around them. These ships belonged to the Zerithan, a nomadic race driven by insatiable hunger, for power, dominance, and destruction. Unlike the Velithra, whose existence celebrated creation, the Zerithan thrived on chaos. Their leader, Kaelvorth, was a being forged from malice itself, his form encased in armor pulsating with dark energy. He sought not conquest but annihilation, viewing civilizations like Ilara's as obstacles to be eradicated. As the invaders descended upon Arinder, the Velithra rallied to defend their home. But their weapons were tools of harmony, designed to heal rather than harm. Against the relentless onslaught of the Zerithan, their efforts proved futile. Cities crumbled, rivers ran dry, and the once vivid skies turned ashen. Ilara watched in anguish as her people fell, their luminous forms extinguished one by one. Desperation clawed at her heart, but she knew she could not abandon hope. Not yet. Summoning every ounce of her resolve, Ilara reached out with her mind, broadcasting a plea across the stars. Her message carried no words, only raw emotion. Fear, sorrow, and an unyielding determination to preserve the beauty of her world. She sent it blindly, trusting that somewhere in the vastness of the universe, someone, or something, would hear her cry for help. And though despair threatened to overwhelm her, she held fast to the belief that even in the darkest hour, light might still find its way. As Ilara's desperate call echoed through the cosmos, humanity sat on the precipice of its own existential reckoning. Earth, a pale blue dot adrift in the endless sea of space, had weathered millennia of conflict and growth. Its people had clawed their way from tribal skirmishes to global empires, from industrial revolutions to technological marvels. Yet, for all their progress, humanity remained fragile, fractured by divisions of ideology, geography, and ambition. Wars raged in forgotten corners of the globe, resources dwindled under the weight of greed, and the scars of environmental neglect grew deeper with each passing year. It was amidst this backdrop of turmoil that Alera's plea pierced the veil of human awareness. Detected by a network of deep space observatories scattered across Earth's moon, the signal was initially dismissed as cosmic noise, a random fluctuation in the electromagnetic spectrum. But Dr. Elena Marquez, a brilliant astrophysicist stationed at the Lunar Research Hub, sensed something extraordinary buried within the data. The patterns were too deliberate, too imbued with intent, to be mere interference. Using cutting-edge quantum decryption algorithms, she unraveled fragments of emotion encoded within the transmission. Fear tempered by resilience, despair laced with hope. Elena's discovery sparked a firestorm of debate among Earth's leaders and scientists. Some dismissed the signal as a natural anomaly or a prank, while others argued it was proof of extraterrestrial intelligence. Amidst the cacophony, General Marcus Kane, commander of the newly formed United Earth Defense Coalition, UEDC, recognized the urgency of the situation. Though humanity had never before encountered alien life, he understood one immutable truth: survival often depended on extending a hand to those in need. If we ignore this, he declared during an emergency council meeting, we deny our own potential for greatness. The decision to respond was not made lightly. Humanity's history was rife with cautionary tales about meddling in affairs beyond its comprehension. Yet, as images reconstructed from Alera's transmission revealed glimpses of Arinder, a world teetering on the brink of ruin, compassion outweighed fear. Governments set aside their differences, pooling resources to assemble a fleet capable of traversing interstellar distances. Engineers worked tirelessly to retrofit spacecraft originally designed for colonization missions, outfitting them with experimental propulsion systems and advanced weaponry. Volunteers poured in from every corner of the globe, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Among these volunteers was Captain Lila Torres, a decorated pilot whose family had fled war-torn regions of Earth decades earlier. For Lila, the mission represented more than duty, it was redemption. Her younger brother Miguel had perished in a border skirmish years ago, leaving her burdened by guilt and regret. Now, standing on the bridge of the flagship Solace, she vowed to protect lives instead of taking them. Beside her stood Dr. Rajiv Patel, a soft-spoken xenobiologist whose fascination with alien ecosystems masked a quiet determination to understand rather than conquer. Together, they embodied humanity's dual nature, its capacity for destruction and its yearning for connection. As the fleet prepared for departure, questions lingered. Could humanity truly make a difference against an enemy as formidable as the Zerithan? Was this act of intervention arrogance masquerading as altruism? Or was it, perhaps, the beginning of something greater? A chance to redefine what it meant to be human. With no answers forthcoming, the ships launched into the void, propelled by equal parts hope and uncertainty. Behind them, Earth faded into insignificance, a reminder of the fragility they sought to transcend. The journey to Arinder tested humanity's resolve in ways no simulation or theory could have predicted. The fleet traversed the void aboard vessels equipped with experimental warp drives, technology pushed to its limits by the urgency of their mission. Time dilation warped perception, stretching days into subjective weeks as the ships hurtled toward the besieged planet. Inside the cramped confines of the Solace and its sister ships, tension simmered beneath the surface. Crew members grappled with isolation, the eerie silence of deep space pressing down on them like an invisible weight. Even the most seasoned astronauts found themselves haunted by dreams of failure, their subconscious minds conjuring visions of Arinder consumed by flames. Yet, amidst the strain, moments of unity emerged. In the mess hall of the Solace, Captain Lila Torres led impromptu storytelling sessions, inviting crewmates to share tales of their homelands. Stories of resilience became a lifeline, binding individuals from disparate cultures into a cohesive unit. Dr. Rajiv Patel spent hours poring over fragmented transmissions from Alera, attempting to decode her emotional language. His findings painted a vivid picture of the alien queen's plight, further fueling the crew's determination. "She's not just asking for help," Rajiv explained during one briefing. "She's calling us to remember what it means to fight for something beautiful." When the fleet finally entered Arinder's orbit, the sight that greeted them was both breathtaking and harrowing. The planet's once vivid skies were streaked with ash, its crystalline forests reduced to skeletal remnants. The Zerithan fleet loomed ominously above the surface, their ships spewing torrents of shadowy energy that scorched the land below. From the bridge of the Solace, Lila gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white as she surveyed the devastation. "Engage stealth protocols," she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within her. "We can't afford to lose the element of surprise." The initial skirmish was chaotic, a blur of laser fire and evasive maneuvers. Humanity's ships, though smaller and less armored than the Zerithan behemoths, possessed speed and agility. Pilots darted between the enemy vessels, targeting weak points identified by Rajiv's analysis of the Zerithan's energy signatures. Explosions lit up the darkness as human missiles struck true, forcing the invaders to divert attention from their assault on Arinder. But the cost was high. Several ships from the fleet were lost in the opening salvos, their crews sacrificing everything to buy time for reinforcements. Amidst the chaos, Captain Torres received a transmission, a faint pulse emanating from the planet's surface. It was Ilera, her presence both a beacon and a plea. "Follow the light," she seemed to whisper, her voice threading through the static. Lila adjusted the ship's trajectory, guiding the remaining fleet toward a glowing nexus at the heart of the battlefield. There, surrounded by crumbling ruins, stood the alien queen herself. Her radiant form flickered like a candle in the wind, strained but unbroken. Around her, the last remnants of the Velethra fought valiantly, their luminous bodies weaving patterns of defiance against the encroaching darkness. As the Solace descended, landing amid the carnage, Lila led a team onto the surface. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and decay, the ground littered with shards of crystal and charred vegetation. Ilera approached them, her movements slow but deliberate. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The Queen's galaxy-like eyes locked onto Lila's, conveying gratitude, sorrow, and an unspoken request. Then, without warning, the ground quaked as a massive Zerithan dreadnought descended, its shadow blotting out the sun. Humanity's arrival had bought Arinder precious time, but the battle was far from over. With the arrival of humanity's fleet, the tide of battle began to shift in subtle, profound ways. The Zerithan, accustomed to overwhelming their foes with brute force and sheer numbers, found themselves confounded by the unexpected ingenuity of their new adversaries. Captain Torres orchestrated daring feints and flanking maneuvers, exploiting gaps in the enemy formation that even the most advanced simulations couldn't have predicted. Each successful strike emboldened the Velethra, who rallied behind the humans' example. Ilera herself took to the skies, her radiant form serving as both inspiration and weapon. She wove through the battlefield like a comet, her energy pulses neutralizing Zerithan projectiles and shielding fleeing civilians from harm. The synergy between humanity and the Velethra blossomed into something extraordinary. While the humans relied on precision tactics and technological prowess, the Velethra brought their unique abilities to bear. Their crystalline structures, shattered during the invasion, now served as conduits for amplified energy waves. Working together, Rajiv Patel and a group of Velethran engineers devised a method to harness these waves, creating localized disruptions in the Zerithan ship's energy fields. One by one, the invaders' vessels faltered, their menacing forms collapsing under the combined assault. Yet, the alliance went beyond strategy and combat. As the battle raged on, bonds of trust and mutual respect formed between the two species. Soldiers shared rations with wounded Velethra, while luminous tendrils of alien energy mended damaged human equipment. Stories of heroism spread quickly, tales of a young Velethran warrior defending a downed human pilot, or a medic risking exposure to toxic radiation to save an injured alien child. These acts of selflessness bridged cultural divides, forging connections that transcended language and biology. For Ilera, witnessing this transformation filled her with a bittersweet mixture of pride and sorrow. She saw her people rediscover their courage through the example set by these fragile yet determined beings from another world. At the same time, the cost of the alliance weighed heavily on her heart. Every fallen soldier, every destroyed ship, was a reminder of the sacrifices being made in her name. Yet, she refused to let despair take hold. Instead, she channeled her emotions into action, amplifying her powers to shield entire sections of the battlefield from Zerithan attacks. Her presence became a rallying point, a symbol of unity that galvanized both species to fight harder, dream bigger, and believe in the possibility of victory. As the hours stretched into days, the coalition's efforts began to yield tangible results. Key Zerithan strongholds fell, their leaders retreating deeper into the planet's atmosphere. The invaders' once unstoppable advance slowed to a crawl, their confidence shaken by the unyielding resistance they faced. For the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered back to life, not just for Arinder, but for the future of interspecies cooperation. Humanity had come as rescuers, but they had become something more, partners in a struggle that transcended individual worlds and destinies. Despite the growing momentum, the Alliance faced mounting challenges that threatened to unravel their hard-won progress. The Zerithan, though battered, unveiled a devastating new tactic, deploying swarms of autonomous drones armed with corrosive payloads capable of dismantling both organic and mechanical defenses. These drones moved with eerie precision, targeting vital infrastructure and severing communication lines between the coalition forces. Captain Torres scrambled to adapt, reprogramming human drones to intercept and neutralize the threat, but the effort drained precious resources and left gaping holes in their defensive perimeter. Simultaneously, internal tensions began to surface within the ranks. Some among the Velethra questioned whether aligning with humanity, an inherently destructive species, was wise. Whispers of doubt spread through their ranks, fueled by memories of past conflicts where outsiders had brought ruin rather than salvation. Meanwhile, certain factions within the human fleet grappled with ideological clashes over leadership decisions. General Kane's insistence on prioritizing high-risk assaults over cautious retreats sparked heated debates, with some officers arguing that attrition would eventually cripple their chances of success. Adding to the strain, supplies dwindled alarmingly fast. The fleet's medical bays overflowed with wounded soldiers and civilians alike, many suffering from injuries inflicted by the Zerithan's dark energy weapons. Treatments developed for human physiology proved ineffective against the unique biological makeup of the Velethra, leaving Rajiv Patel scrambling to devise improvised solutions. Morale plummeted as exhaustion set in, compounded by the knowledge that reinforcements wouldn't arrive anytime soon. Each passing day brought fresh casualties, further testing the resolve of both species. Amidst this chaos, Elara bore the weight of her people's doubts alongside the physical toll of sustaining her protective barriers. Her once luminous form grew dimmer, her movements slower, as she stretched her powers to their absolute limit. Yet, she refused to yield, drawing strength from the unwavering determination of those around her. When a young Velethran healer openly expressed fears about humanity's intentions, Elara responded not with rebuke but with vulnerability. "We are all afraid," she admitted, her voice trembling yet resolute. "But fear must not divide us, it must remind us why we fight." Her words resonated deeply, silencing dissent and reigniting the spirit of collaboration. Inspired by her candor, Lila Torres organized joint training exercises, pairing human and Velethra fighters to build trust and refine strategies. Slowly but surely, the cracks in their unity began to mend. New innovations emerged from shared ingenuity: hybrid shields combining human tech with Velethran energy fields, adaptive camouflage derived from the planet's crystalline flora, and even rudimentary translation devices enabling clearer communication. Each breakthrough reinforced the belief that their differences were not weaknesses but strengths waiting to be harnessed. Still, the specter of defeat loomed large. The Zerithan leader, Kaelvorth, remained elusive, orchestrating his forces from the shadows while preparing a final, catastrophic assault. Intelligence reports hinted at a doomsday weapon hidden within the planet's core, capable of annihilating Arinder entirely. With time running out and resources stretched thin, the coalition faced an impossible choice: launch a desperate gambit to destroy the weapon or fortify their positions in hopes of enduring until reinforcements arrived. Both options carried immense risks, and the decision rested squarely on the shoulders of Elara, Lila, and General Kane. As they convened to deliberate, the weight of their choices pressed down like the gravity of a dying star, forcing them to confront not only the immediate peril but also the uncertain legacy of their actions. In the dim confines of the war room aboard the Solace, Elara, Lila Torres, and General Marcus Kane gathered around a holographic map projecting the fractured landscape of Arinder. The image shimmered with red markers indicating Zerithan strongholds, while a pulsating black sphere at the planet's core represented the looming threat of Kaelvorth's doomsday weapon. The air was thick with tension, each leader wrestling with the enormity of the decision before them. Elara spoke first, her voice carrying the weight of centuries but tinged with weariness. "If we strike now, we risk everything," she said, her galaxy-like eyes reflecting both resolve and doubt. "But if we wait, my people will perish, and your fleet may not survive another wave." Her luminous form flickered faintly, betraying the toll her sustained efforts had taken on her essence. Yet, there was no hesitation in her gaze as she turned to Lila and Kane. "You have given us hope where none existed. Tell me, what must be done?" Lila exchanged a glance with General Kane, their unspoken bond forged through shared sacrifice and mutual respect. For all his gruff demeanor, Kane understood the gravity of leading soldiers into battle without guarantee of return. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table as though drawing strength from its solid surface. "We've faced impossible odds before," he began, his voice low but steady. "And every time, humanity has risen to meet them, not because victory was assured, but because doing nothing meant certain defeat." He paused, studying the hologram intently. "If we fortify our positions, we buy time. But for what? Reinforcements won't arrive in time, and Kaelvorth isn't going to sit idle. That weapon is a death sentence for this planet, and potentially for Earth if the Zerithan decide to turn their attention outward next. No, we can't afford to play defense anymore." Lila nodded slowly, her mind racing through scenarios. "Then it's settled," she said, her tone firm despite the knot of dread tightening in her chest. "We hit the core. We take out the weapon before they can activate it." She looked at Alara, her expression softening. "But we'll need you, with us, not just shielding us. Your power could make the difference between success and failure." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Alara closed her eyes, her radiant form dimming further as she considered the implications. To leave her people unprotected, even briefly, felt like betrayal. Yet, deep within her, she knew the truth. Staying behind would only delay the inevitable. If the weapon activated, no barrier she erected could shield them from annihilation. With a deep breath, she opened her eyes once more, their swirling depths alight with determination. "I will go," she declared, her voice resonating with quiet authority. "But I cannot do this alone. Trust me, as I trust you." The plan came together swiftly, born of necessity rather than luxury. A strike team would infiltrate the planet's core via a network of crystalline tunnels that ran beneath the surface, a route too narrow for Zerithan forces to traverse but perilous enough to deter casual exploration. Leading the charge would be Captain Torres, accompanied by a select group of human soldiers and Velothran warriors. Alara herself would join them, her energy serving as both guide and shield. Meanwhile, General Kane would oversee the fleet's efforts to divert the Zerithan's attention, launching decoy attacks across multiple fronts to mask the true objective. As preparations unfolded, the coalition worked with feverish intensity. Engineers retrofitted transport vessels to navigate the treacherous tunnels, outfitting them with reinforced hulls and adaptive sensors designed to detect structural weaknesses. Medics prepared emergency kits stocked with experimental treatments tailored to both species, while technicians fine-tuned communication devices capable of functioning in the dense crystalline environment. Every detail mattered. Failure was not an option. Yet, amidst the flurry of activity, personal sacrifices became starkly apparent. Dr. Rajiv Patel volunteered to remain behind, coordinating medical support and analyzing real-time data from the battlefield. His decision stemmed not from fear but from recognition of his role as a healer rather than a fighter. "My place is here," he told Lila when she tried to persuade him otherwise. "Someone needs to keep everyone alive long enough to see this through." Even among the combatants, emotions ran high. A young Velothran warrior named Silra approached Alara moments before departure, her translucent form trembling with barely contained anxiety. "My queen," she whispered, bowing low, "I beg you, let me stay above ground. Let me protect our people while you venture below." But Alara placed a gentle tendril of light against Silra's shoulder, silencing her plea. "Your courage inspires me," Alara replied softly. "But your strength lies in resilience, not recklessness. Stay and fight, for me." Finally, the hour of departure arrived. The strike team assembled in the shadow of the Solace, their faces illuminated by the glow of Arinder's fractured skies. Lila stood at the forefront, clad in battle-worn armor etched with scorch marks from countless skirmishes. Beside her, Alara radiated a subdued brilliance, her form steady despite the strain visible in the subtle tremors coursing through her tendrils. Behind them, soldiers and warriors exchanged final words of encouragement, their unity palpable even in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. With a solemn nod from Kane, who watched from the bridge of the flagship, the convoy descended into the crystalline labyrinth. The tunnels were a kaleidoscope of refracted light, their walls humming faintly with residual energy from the planet's dying ecosystem. Progress was slow and treacherous, each step fraught with the risk of collapse or ambush. Ilera led the way, her presence casting a protective aura that illuminated the path ahead while warding off lurking dangers. Despite her weakened state, she moved with purpose, her connection to Arinder guiding them ever closer to the heart of the planet. Hours passed, marked by the rhythmic hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of distant explosions echoing from above. The sound served as grim reminders of the battle raging on the surface, where the fate of the mission depended as much on distraction as infiltration. As they neared the core, however, unease settled over the group. The air grew colder, heavier, as though the very atmosphere recoiled from what lay ahead. Then, abruptly, the tunnel opened into a cavernous chamber bathed in an eerie, pulsating glow. At its center loomed the doomsday weapon, a monolithic construct of jagged obsidian encased in writhing tendrils of dark energy. It pulsed rhythmically, feeding off the life force of Arinder itself. Surrounding it were Kael'vorth's elite guards, their forms armored in living shadows that writhed menacingly. At the sight of the intruders, they turned as one, weapons raised and ready to strike. Lila tightened her grip on her rifle, her pulse hammering in her ears. Beside her, Ilera extended her arms, her body glowing brighter as she prepared to unleash her full power. "This is it," Lila murmured, her voice barely audible over the weapon's ominous thrum. No turning back. As the first shots rang out, chaos erupted. The cavern became a maelstrom of light and shadow, energy blasts colliding in bursts of searing heat. Ilera surged forward, her tendrils lashing out like whips of starlight, disintegrating Zerithan guards with each strike. Human and Velothran fighters fought side by side, their combined skills creating a symphony of destruction. Yet, for every foe they felled, two more seemed to materialize, their numbers bolstered by reinforcements pouring in from hidden alcoves. Amidst the carnage, Lila locked eyes with Kael'vorth himself. Towering over his minions, the Zerithan leader exuded an aura of pure malice, his armor crackling with malevolent energy. "You dare challenge me?" he snarled, his voice reverberating like thunder. Without waiting for a response, he lunged toward Ilera, his blade carved from darkness slicing through the air. Time slowed as Lila made her choice. She dove forward, intercepting Kael'vorth's attack with a desperate parry. Sparks flew as metal met shadow, the impact sending shockwaves rippling through the chamber. Behind her, Ilera channeled her remaining strength into disabling the weapon, her tendrils weaving intricate patterns of light around its core. The device shuddered violently, resisting her efforts, but she pressed on, her determination unwavering. Kael'vorth roared in fury, turning his attention to Lila. Blow after blow rained down upon her, each strike testing the limits of her endurance. Pain flared through her body, but she refused to falter, driven by the knowledge that failure meant the end of everything they had fought for. In the periphery of her vision, she saw Ilera falter, her form flickering dangerously. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Lila pushed back against Kael'vorth with renewed ferocity, buying precious seconds for the queen to complete her task. And then, just as hope seemed lost, a brilliant flash of light engulfed the chamber. The weapon let out a deafening wail, its tendrils of darkness unraveling as Ilera unleashed the full force of her power. The cavern shook violently, chunks of crystalline rock raining down from above. Kael'vorth staggered, his armor cracking under the strain of the backlash. For the first time, doubt flickered in his cruel eyes. With a final, desperate surge, Ilera collapsed the weapon's core, its dark energy imploding in a blinding flash. Kael'vorth screamed as the backlash consumed him, his form dissolving into nothingness. The cavern quaked violently, signaling imminent collapse. Lila grabbed Ilera's fading form, shouting for retreat as debris rained down. The strike team scrambled back toward the tunnels, their path illuminated only by flickering shards of light. Above ground, General Kane's fleet unleashed a coordinated assault to cover their escape. Explosions lit up the sky as the remaining Zerithan forces scrambled in disarray. Dragging Ilera to safety, Lila emerged from the tunnels just as the ground split open behind them. Arinder trembled one last time before falling silent, its skies beginning to clear. As dawn broke over the battered planet, humanity and Velothra stood together amidst the ruins, their bond forged in fire and sacrifice. But Ilera's weakened form hinted that the cost of victory was yet to be fully realized.